All right, healthy runners, good evening. It is Monday Night Spark Live. We are here for another episode of the Healthy Runner podcast. And this one is going to be a really neat story for you guys. We have Scott Richardson here from New Freedom Fitness. Welcome, Scott.
Hello, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
So, in this episode, guys, Scott is going to be sharing his pretty amazing story on how he overcame many obstacles and found his purpose. So, Scott's relatively new to our community, actually. And I remember when he did sign up to the Healthy Runner Facebook group, I usually ask for people that sign up kind of, what do you want to learn about running? And then I usually ask, do a little welcome. And I remember, Scott, your kind of welcome message. And, you kind of went into some of your story. And I was like, wow, this is a pretty amazing story. So we started, going back and forth, got into a little conversation. And I really thought that Scott's story either will, for some of you, you might be able to resonate with different parts of his story. But even if you don't resonate with the specifics, I think many of us are going through struggles, whether or not they're personal, they're mental, they're physical, they're right. We all have struggles in life. And I think hearing Scott's story on how he overcame many obstacles and struggles, I think can be helpful. And I'm sure that Scott's going to be able to share some kind of tips, and just hearing kind of how he overcame those things is going to be able to help you in your running. So for my Facebook friends who are hopping on here on the live, just type in live. And if you're catching the replay of this, then just type in hashtag team replay. And as we're going through tonight's interview, just drop your questions in the comment box below. And Scott, I will kind of field those questions and we'll get to any of those. So, Scott, you've been listening to the podcast now for a couple episodes. So, we always start our episodes with a nice little dynamic warm up. So, for our warm up, tell us, where are you from and what do you do?
Well, I'm from the home of State Farm. It's Bloomington Normal, Illinois. We're about 100 miles southwest of Chicago and middle of the best corn and soybean land in America. And that's no brag, that's the truth. And what I do now is I was a journalist, local newspaper for 32 years, and I retired. And I still write for magazines. I was writing for magazines for about 25 years, mostly outdoor fishing kind of thing. And then when I got into retirement, I switched over and started writing for USA Triathlon. So I've been able to continue that. It's more pleasure. And I've never really worked a whole day in my life. I have fun and somebody pays me for it. So I still get to do it, and I really enjoy that. And then, I've got USAT coaching, US Masters swimming coaching, and recently got my NASM personal trainer certification so I could learn more about how to put strength, better apply strength in my training. So
That's
that's
great. And I'm sure we're going to get into a lot more of your journey. But let me just give a little shout out to some people, man. You're getting a strong following here, Scott. We got a lot of people jumping on the live. Jean's here on the live. Kat's here on the live. Rachel's here. Hey, Rachel, how are you? You're recovering from our long run yesterday. Heather's here. Liz is here. How you doing, Liz? And then Matt is here. So Matt from UCAN says, "Oh, hey,
oh,
Scott. He just read the story that you sent in to UCAN. He says, amazing journey." And that's so funny, Matt, because we were just talking. I was talking with Scott before we went live, and he was saying that he found your product based upon our interview.
that's
So for
right.
those of you who didn't listen to the UCAN podcast interview with Matt Bach, check that one out if you're looking to prevent bonking with running and getting that long run fuel. And I know Scott has said that he's felt amazing on the UCAN. So shout out to you, Matt. Thanks for coming on the show. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing Scott's story here, Matt. It's definitely intrigued me as well. And that's why he is here today. So, Scott, tell us, why do you like to run, or why do you like to work with the running community?
Well, the running is so primeval, isn't it? And do you remember when you were a kid and the first time you ran? I do. It was competitive. I remember running. Miss Campbell in kindergarten uh, took us out on the playground one day and said, "Should we have a race?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Okay, run to the fence." So we all ran to the fence and back, and I beat Buddy Wall, and I beat them all actually. And it just felt so good. It just felt so right. And so running, biking, swimming, all these things that I did as a kid, it's released that inner child, and I found joy in it. And and there's a lot of other reasons, mental, physical, spiritual. It all comes together, and running does that. And the running community, the endurance community. Matt's an Ironman. That whole sense of purpose and we compete, yes, but if you've ever been at these races, people are saying, "Hey, you're looking good. You're doing great." And, you're cheering on the people that you're in the race with, and how wonderful is that? And I don't know too many other sports that people are so mutually supportive and compassionate towards the challenges that we go through. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because we do so many hours on our own, and so people don't realize, except when we get to races, we share that experience. We can look in each other's eyes and know what we've been through. 10, 15, even 20 hours sometimes in Ironman training to really putting ourselves out there, and all the sacrifice that we've done, and all the sacrifice our wives and spouses have done, and our families, and all these other people. It all comes together. Nobody gets to the starting line alone. Nobody crosses the finish line by themselves. And so it's that whole sense of community. That's one of the things that drew me to the Healthy Runner, was the community that I found here on Facebook. They're enthusiastic. That's what I really like.
Indeed. Well, we're glad you found us, and that I can relate to that. Yesterday, so we're doing a half marathon training program, and we're doing socially distant group runs. And I was running with one of our members yesterday for our long run, and we were talking about our first full marathon experience. And she ran only one, and I've only run one in my running career thus far. And I was thinking back to, as you mentioned, that kind of the family support. And I just remember, my wife, my two girls there at the finish line, even though I cramped up because I didn't know about UCAN back then, Matt, I was not fueling as I should have in terms of my hydration and my electrolytes. So I did cramp up mile 20, and I literally ran through cramps for, 6 miles. But it was the family support, like you said, Scott, at the end of the race that was there for me. And it's not only you as an individual. And that's the goal of our Healthy Runner community here. So I am glad that you are here. Now take us back, way back. So you talked about the first time that you started running. How about in your childhood and early adulthood? Were you always someone who was kind of healthy during that time period?
No. But I always worked. I was an athlete, but I wasn't healthy. There's a major difference. And
Yeah.
sometimes,
So what do you mean by that?
well, I rode a bike. My dad bought me a used Schwinn with the sprocket, the shock absorber on the front of the handlebars. For, I don't know, my 8th birthday. It was oversized, too big for me. I rode that thing everywhere. Always had a baseball glove on the handlebars. Always looking for a game. Always played organized baseball. And I caught. I loved being in every pitch. I loved being in. I loved the game. And um, uh, coaching was not so great. So, but I remember my first coach that was really good, Mr. Price. I was probably 10 years old, maybe 11. He said,
Wow, man.
you got to lose some weight. And I was already, fallen victim to, eating too much, bad nutritional habits. My mom was a working mom back in the days before microwaves and fast food, and we got a lot of hot dogs, a lot of hamburgers, a lot of bread, a lot of potato chips, and I had I could already see the seed of some emotional issues going on because of I got um, bust when I was in fifth grade, away from my gang to another gang, and it was not a good time to at that age to be uprooted when you're going through so many other things, and so anyway, food became a way of uh, food is fuel, but that wasn't the message that I got, and that's not the message a lot of people get. Food became comfort, and so I was. The Buddhists talk about hungry ghosts, trying to find things outside of ourselves to fill that hole that we feel inside. And food was my first. So I was always up and down, up and down, up and down. And high school, I got on the swim team, got down, because I was going to college and there was going to be girls, and had to get in shape for that, right? So
Oh yeah.
yeah, so but of course you get a driver's license, the bike gets parked, So I ran at that point in time. I ran in order to be in shape for swimming, and but I enjoyed it. I mean, I really still enjoyed it. I loved it. I had a good friend who'd been a pitcher when I was a catcher, and we ran a lot because we were both on the swim team. Uh, so it was fun, and he was a cross country runner, so he could show me the places to go that were fun with something to look at, and so that planted that seed too. But when I went to college, it was carbs, carbs on top of carbs, and then beer, and then it was just it was just up and down, and then up higher, and then up higher, and that was the pattern that I followed most of my life. Uh, I would lose weight, and then nobody would, you know, every everybody says diet and exercise. I never heard that second word, so I was always on this roller coaster of you know eating, dieting, and then falling back into old habits and coming back and coming back. So finally, uh, in 2005, 2004, Christmas of 2004, that promo picture that you put up, that is from Christmas of 2004, when my dear mother, who who would always say that old age ain't for sissies, insisted on getting a picture. I thought my brother always dwarfed me. I stayed away from mirrors, and but there was no escaping that JPEG when it got sent to me. I opened it up and I thought, oh my lord. Yeah, I had weighed in about 370 something a year or two before that, but people that big, we don't get on scales unless the doctor is holding a gun to our head, right? So I don't know what I weighed totally, but I had a 50-inch waist, um, and I was a hefty guy. And coincidentally enough, I was an outdoor rider, and I fished a lot. And but I wrote about all kinds of outdoor sports, all the runners, the marathons, all that stuff. I wrote about all those people. And the bike club folk came up to me in. I made a commitment in January of 2005 that I was going to lose it again. And I was 54, and I've been sober 16 years at that point. And so I knew I could change. I mean, I had a history. I went from being a 4-pack a day smoker to none on April 4th of 1988. I quit smoking and doing drugs on October 2nd of 1988. So I knew that I could make changes. and I'd lost up to 100 pounds before. So I knew I could do it. But the question was, would I and how? And coincidentally enough, three guys from the local bike club came up. They wanted me to promote a story about bikes change lives. They wanted to give 3 bikes to people and then have me follow them for the next several months. And how would that change them physically? Well, they wanted to give me one, but that was unethical. But I thought, I used to like biking. So I went out and bought one. And here I am in a t-shirt and jeans, riding on a hybrid bike, riding with kids, what I consider kids, in spandex,
Yeah.
and on road bikes. And I'm cussing up a storm, brother, trying to keep up with them. And
So that's how you actually started getting active again, was with the group. So at this point, let's just kind of put things into perspective here. So at that point, you think you were kind of close to almost 400 pounds?
Oh, I had to be. I was at 370.
Oh, wow.
So I was at 370 a couple of years before that, and I did nothing to change. So I knew I had to be up over somewhere in that neighborhood. But as I said, nobody gets on a scale that big.
Wow. So, and this was, you said December of 2004. And the reason why I remember that date is that's when I got married, actually, in December 2004, which is really odd because you were telling me we had some similarities in how I met my wife. And so for those of you that haven't listened to the first episode in which I shared my story, I kind of shared how I met my wife through dance, and dance was kind of my sport as a child growing up and into kind of early adulthood. And you were also saying that you met your wife right through cycling. Yeah. On the bike. Okay. So December 2004, you were at least 400 pounds. We have the picture. We have the picture of the proof, right?
Looks like proof to me.
So you started doing actually group rides, right? At that, so you didn't even like go, solo and try to like. Well, you were fine. You weren't embarrassed. Was that hard to do that in a group?
Sure, you're embarrassed. Sure, you're embarrassed. So what? I mean, look. One of the things that I have a friend in recovery that likes to say that we deal with problems in the order in which they'll kill us. And so I quit smoking, I quit drinking and doing drugs, and I finally got around to food. And so, there's embarrassment as, seriously, I understand people that are embarrassed about this stuff. I totally have compassion. Nobody will have more compassion for people than me in that situation. But you can't let that stop you. You can't stop. There's all kinds of things your brain wants to tell you, but friends, when they close the coffin, only you are going to be in there. And so the way you live your life, how other people think about that, it does not matter. What they look at you and say, oh, they're overweight. Who cares? You may be overweight today. That doesn't mean you're going to be overweight next year. You could lose quite a bit of weight in a year. I know. I lost enough weight in that first year that I felt confident going to a doctor that I was going to get a pat on the head. Oh, you're doing great. Keep it up. So I did. And then I got a call back and they said, well, we're going to send you to a urologist, Scott, because your tests, we don't know. So I did. I went to a urologist. Sure enough, I had prostate cancer. And
oh my goodness.
If I had not gotten onto the bike when I did, I would never have gone to a doctor. And if I had not gone to that doctor, that cancer would have advanced to where, who knows. So I think that the bike saved my life right then. Anyway, yeah, I was embarrassed, but these guys were great. They were wonderful people. Somebody would always hang back with Scott and listen to him swear. And so they were just so kind. And so And I'd ride by myself because I want to get better. So I was riding five times a week and 3 times with the club. And it was one of those um, programs for beginners, just like you take people through.
Hmm.
We start small, we work up. That's the way they were working up, and they had a um,
So this was working with a coach.
no with the club. I mean,
Okay.
these are all amateurs passing on what they've learned, but some of these people have been riding, forever, so they knew a lot. Uh,
Yep.
so um, so I they were riding. We were training for their 60-mile ride. They had a 60-mile ride because we're on Route 66. They used to have a 66-mile ride. So I
Like
wrote,
Route
I,
66, like in the cartoon Cars,
yeah, yeah. So
the
I,
Disney
so I,
movie
so
Cars.
I, so I route, I, we're right on Route 66, Bloomington Normal. So I rode with, I rode with them, and I did that, and I ended up being what they called the best young dog, or I think it was that. I got a plaque and everything because I rode 3,500 miles that year. So, um, you know, uh,
So
it,
how long did it take you to lose the weight?
well, depends on what your depends on what benchmark you want to talk about.
Yeah.
I did my first Ironman in 2011, and I did it at about 220, 225, somewhere in there. I was satisfied with that because that's that I had a 34-inch waist, and I was strong. I was satisfied with that. But then and I did Ironman Wisconsin again in 2013, and uh, oh, that first time I did Ironman, I did it with a rupture I knew about. I'd fallen on a night run and I'd gotten a rupture, tore up my face. Oh God. But I couldn't stop, right? Because if I stopped to get it fixed, I was out. My training was done. So I, I couldn't do that. So I did my first Ironman. Kathy and I did research, and we found a truss with it. It's a plastic thing. It's brief that you put on. It puts plastic thing that pushes your insides back in. So I did
Oh my
Ironman with
goodness.
truss.
Oh my goodness.
Nuts. But
Now,
then
now was the Iron Man, was that something that
Ironman
you were
was
doing for weight loss or no? Once you
no.
started kind of getting
But
active
I got
and
active,
lose.
and then I had cancer, and I started riding the bike for relay teams. A great guy here by the name of Jeff Wells uh, raised money for Livestrong, and he had relay teams and triathlons. So I rode the bike for a couple of years, and I loved the people. They were great people. I remember riding down. I remember riding my first race, and I'm riding along, and I look over, and there's this guy with this prosthetic leg next to me. About, I don't know, probably 25, maybe 30. I don't know. I'm terrible like that. I wouldn't make any money at a carnival. And um, so I looked over at him, and it just, my heart, I love these people. And I felt a little bit guilty because I wasn't wet. These people were wet. I'm racing. They don't know that I haven't been in the water, and I'm passing them, and I'm feeling a little guilty about that. So, I said in the newspaper column, I'm thinking about doing this triathlon, this whole deal. And I got a phone call, and it was from a coach from a Vision Quest out of Chicago. He lived here in Bloomington Normal, a guy by the name of Stan Watkins. He worked for Vision Quest, which is Robbie Ventura's group. I don't know. Robbie Ventura was a bike racer, cyclist. He has this cycling triathlon coaching group in Chicago, and he has remote coaches around. And so Stan said, "I'll help you. I, you're making, you're doing a lot of good sharing your story with people in your newspaper about your weight loss and fitness and all this. So I'm going to help you." I said, "Great." So he asked me what I wanted to do. What's your ultimate goal? And believe me, I don't know what made me say it. And I don't know, I wasn't about to say it out loud. So I almost whispered. I said, "You think I can do an Ironman?" And he said, I remember his words. He said, yes, but not today. So he said, we're going to make a 3-year plan, Scott. 3 years. You're going to commit to 3 years. The first year you're going to do your sprint, and the next year you're going to do a half Ironman, and the next year you're going to do Ironman. And so we went through the process, and I did. So
Nice. So it did take you that 3-year period to kind of go through,
yeah, it was a perfect plan.
and that's yeah, no, that's actually great. In terms of sometimes people have these like grandiose goals, right? They just want to like do an Ironman, but they haven't really built up. So I like that you did proper progression, like our fifth tip of healthy running,
Oh,
right? Kind of train smart with proper progression. So I
mhm.
like to see that you did have that proper progression there. So
Amen.
now, did you also have a hip issue as well?
I did. In 2013, when I went back, I said to Kathy, I told her first, well, I'm done with Ironman, right? Everybody says that right after. And then you can't wait to sign up. So, so I thought I'd give her a year off. So in 2012, I did Branson, half Ironman, Branson, Missouri, in the Ozarks. That was one tough race. Oh my gosh, up and down, boy. But then in 2013, I went back. I told Kathy, I'd really like to do an Ironman healthy. Well, so I'm running, about 6 weeks out from, and my hip starts to hurt, and I think hip flexor, right? I'll rest it. Gonna taper. During the race, it just exploded. It was just like, oh my god, this hurts. But I finished. I got all done, and went to a doctor, and the orthopedic told me that I had AVN, and that it was going to cost me my hip. And so that was in 2013 when he diagnosed it. I switched to a guy who was a triathlete in an orthopedic, and he took, because the first one said you're going to have a knee too, and the second one said no, the knee's going to straighten out. The kinetic chain will be okay when we fix your hip, and your knee will be all right. And I like that better. And so he fixed that in 2015, 2016, and 2017. I did uh, half
So
iron
you,
half Ironman up at Michigan Titanium, which is a great race if anybody's looking for one. And 2018, I was supposed to do a half at Madison, but it rained all night, and it was pouring rain when we went over to the transition, and it was pouring rain when the swim was supposed to start, and they had to delay and delay, and I was already shivering, and I'm thinking, with a fake hip and these hills, I really don't want anybody crashing in front of me on the bike and taking out my hip. I don't want to be crippled, so I skipped that, and I came back, and that's when I was able to sign up for an ultra run that I always wanted to do late in the year, but I was always doing a triathlon. So uh, that's when I got hooked on ultra running in 2018.
yeah.
I did a 50K then, 50 mile last
Wow.
year at Hennepin, and I was supposed to do the 100 mile this October, but of course it's canceled.
Wow. So Scott, you do have a total hip replacement?
I do.
Wow. Okay. So let me just bring this back to our listeners because they probably were wondering what AVN is. So avascular necrosis
Mhm.
is the condition that Scott's talking about. So most of you out there, maybe if you have a total hip or you've been told you may need one, is usually due to the most common scenarios: hip osteoarthritis, kind of that wear and tear arthritis. The cartilage starts to wear away between your two bony surfaces of the ball and the socket joint. But what Scott had is something that's a little bit more rare, where the blood flow to the ball, the femoral head, starts to be compromised, and then the bone itself starts to die essentially. So they need to replace it with the titanium hip. But that is one point that I think is important that you mentioned too, Scott, was that you went to one orthopedic and then you got a second opinion and you went to another one who was a triathlete. And that's something that a lot of the patients that I work with, that is something that they're looking for, is someone who actually does the sport that you are doing, especially if you go to a medical practitioner. And especially for runners, I really try to recommend, not to say that you won't get good care from someone who sees everything, but it is nice to have a medical practitioner, whether it's a PT, a chiro, a doctor, an ortho, who is active at least and can appreciate what exercise means to you, or what running means to you, or what triathlon training means to you, because we take things in a different perspective. And I know for myself, for my patients, I'm not going to just come out and say, don't run. Right. So that's always my last resort. And only if it's medically necessary that they need to go there. Whereas some medical practitioners who aren't active and who aren't runners may say, well, you've been running and you have some heel pain. Well, just stop running and the heel pain is going to go away. And they're right, it will. But what kind of quality of life is that for you, right? If
Right.
running is something you love, and or you're doing it to stay active, or you're doing it to overcome challenges like Scott was doing, then you should have that as part of a lifestyle if that's what you're looking for. And there are better answers than to just stop doing those activities in order to get better from your injuries. So I like the fact that you mentioned you did go and see another orthopedic. And then the other thing is, for those that are listening, and if you do have a total hip replacement, this is like my safety check here, because I also teach this post-surgical content at our university, is make sure that your surgeon, and your replacement, that you actually can run on it. So depending upon the components, depending upon the approach, depending upon the surgeon, you might not be able to run on your total hip replacement, or you will suffer the consequences of it loosening. The components can loosen within your bone, and then you're going to have to go in and get a revision, which the outcomes are not as good the more replacements you get. So I just want to kind of put that safety check out there. And it sounds like Scott has done that. He found the surgeon that was able to provide him a hip that he can stay active and can run on. But I would say the majority of total hips out there, for the most part, you cannot run on unless you go to kind of a specialized surgeon like Scott did. So just in case some of you are listening and you have a total hip and you're like, hey, this guy is doing it, why don't I go out there and do it? I just wanted to put that little notice of caution out there for everyone listening.
Good disclaimer. I I go in to see my orthopedic every year after whatever insanity I've gotten myself into this time, and they take X-rays. And this last time, after the 50 miler, he said that he saw no difference between 2019 and 2018. He told me when I got it that I paid for it, I should go use it up. Uh, One of the nice things about having, one of the great things about this endurance sports, running, biking, swimming, there's so much to learn. And getting my own coaching certificate when Stan retired, and getting my own coaching certificate so that I could understand what was going on with my own body, and how to fine tune it and how to listen to it. Sometimes I don't do such a great job. I've got a shin splint right now, but I hope it's only a shin. But the it's important to be in touch with really good people, knowledgeable folk, and it's important to have to be egoless enough to be willing to ask the questions, because you can't know it. We go to school for this stuff, so you need to ask questions. And if something doesn't sound right, get a second opinion. Ask somebody else. Keep asking. Keep asking. Read a book. There's all kinds of information out there that's wonderful. So anyway, I just love
Yeah,
this.
no. Great point. So Scott, you kind of thank you for sharing your story, by the way, but you obviously have accomplished a lot and overcame more. You kind of mentioned that you were battling weight issues kind of your whole life, going up and down roller coaster wise. You mentioned some alcoholism and drug addiction. You mentioned kind of overcoming getting a diagnosis of cancer, right? Prostate cancer, a total joint replacement. So, what advice would you give someone else if they recently had some bad news, whether it's any of those, or maybe they're battling addiction, or if someone's going through some personal issues, work related issues, physical, emotional, whatever it is, right? Everyone's got struggles. We all got struggles, especially during a pandemic, right? Some people are struggling right now. What advice can you give, or how do our running community, how do we continue to move forward in our health and our training?
So when I went in for that rupture, the doctor did a colonoscopy, right? That was 2011. Uh, I was supposed to get one in 2006, but I got sidetracked because of the prostate cancer. So in 2011, I come out of a anesthetic uh, from the rupture surgery and this colonoscopy, and my wife's up looking down at me, and she's got tears in her eyes, and she says, "You've got cancer again." And and I looked up at her and I said, "Am I dreaming?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Kathy, it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right." And it's the truth. It, I have a friend. He passed. He said. I think he quoted John Lennon. He used to say, "It's going to be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not the end." So stay in the moment. Stay right here, right now, and ask yourself, what is it that I can do right here, right now to accomplish whatever goal it is that I have in mind that I want to accomplish? And do that. That's what you can do. Uh, the rest of it is just mental static. It just is, it's in your head and it's just creating fear and it does no good at all. So I meditate a lot. I find I've been involved in meditation since I got into recovery, and it I've heard estimates of 16,000 to 60,000 individual thoughts come at us a day. Our brains are like uh, Teflon when it comes to good thoughts, but it's like Velcro when it's bad thoughts. So, and I also remember reading a
So
book
true.
called, I also remember reading a book called Learned Optimism by a guy named Martin Seligman. Came out many when I was getting sober, so it's an older book now, but 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 he said that it took 7 positive affirmations to overcome one negative thought. And most of our thoughts can be negative, and it's the negative biased brain that evolution gave us. I mean, um, the people who weren't fearful when they heard rustling in the leaves, something in the dark, those people were dead, so they didn't reproduce. So the people who ran, those were the people that lived. So fear is a kind of ingrained. So um, the only way to overcome that really is to understand that you don't have to give in to your thoughts. You do not have to believe them. They're not always true, and so you know some smart guy said, a man is what he thinks about all day long. you know, think about that. If you're thinking negative thoughts all day long, you're in trouble. So so you got to learn to and it takes practice. It really does take practice. You got to stay in the moment, right here, right now. The breath, every breath, and every breath becomes a miracle. Every moment becomes becomes an opportunity to be joyful and feel gratitude for being alive. I mean, 14 billion years ago, there was nothing here. 4.5 billion years ago, there was nothing in this area and space was vacant, and here we are, and we're able to communicate. We're able to, enjoy each other's company, and
Be on Facebook Live.
yeah, and love, the technology. Look at it, and everything's a miracle. It's just incredible. So, um, um, I'm not Pollyanna. I've been through it. And and uh, and it's all led me to this understanding that life's too doggone short to be worried about it too much. Um, get in touch with that kid that went running to the fence when Miss Campbell said go. Have fun. Um, uh, find things to do of worth, which is why I'm here. This isn't about see me at all. This is about if you get anything out of this at all, if you're in a hole, if you're in a dark place, don't stay there. Ask somebody for help. Reach out. I don't care what the addiction might be. I don't care what the problem might be. There's a solution and you can find it. If you want it bad enough, it's there. So reach out, ask questions, find the right people, stick around the positive, like healthy runner community on Facebook. Great place.
Or listening on the podcast. Yeah, all of our
Yeah.
podcast listeners. No, that's great. Scott, thank you. That was pretty amazing. Things I kind of took from that is live in the moment. Don't let your thoughts get the best of you, and realize that they are thoughts and you can overcome them. And the important thing you said, reach out, right? Reach out to resources, whether it's close family, friends, professionals, right? If you're dealing with addiction, reach out. There's help out there. So I like that. And then even you mentioned going back to Miss Campbell there, and just think about when you were a kid and you were doing it for fun. So what are the things that are going to make running fun for you? So I do talk to many people and they say, well, how do you run? Why do you make it look so fun? Right? Well, it's not fun. Running isn't fun. And again, it kind of goes back to what you were just talking about, Scott, and your thoughts. And it depends what you associate with it, right? So however you need to make running a game, whether it is going on a track, whether it's going, running a certain run like Bartlett's, where you're running as fast to the stop sign as possible. And then you're going easy, right? Going with a friend, listening to music, listening to a podcast, educating yourself. There's so many different ways that you can get out there and run. Have a good conversation with a friend. So even just like our group run yesterday, I usually never run with anyone. I'm usually listening to my podcast on my easy runs, and then I'm listening to my pump up music during my hard effort runs. And yesterday's long run, I was having a great conversation. So I was having a great conversation with Kerry, and the time just like flew by. 10 miles, boom, was done. So, there are so many different ways to get out there and be active. And I think that's kind of what Scott is talking about. So Scott, we're going to get into our final stretch here. Okay. So I asked all my guests here, if there's one thing that you can change about the misconception of running, and I'm going to actually add this in here because we haven't talked about this on the podcast before, and you've kind of been very open about this, or misconception about, I'm going to just plug in there addiction, either or. If you want to talk about running, addiction, what would that be?
Well, I'm struck when I listen to podcasts from other people, mostly where they're talking to a lot of ultra runners, or they're talking to endurance triathletes, where people start talking about pain. They talk about it like it's a god. They're in pursuit of pain, and doesn't it sound insane to you just on the surface of it? I mean, the psychologists have a name for that. They call it masochism. I'm not a masochist. I'm not looking for pain, but embracing the struggle, embracing the fact that change isn't easy. It's not going to be easy. Let's get that through our heads. Let's embrace that. and then do it anyway. Smart. Let's be smart. Let's get plans. Find coaches. Find people who can help us put together a progressive plan for whatever goal it is that you're looking for. Um, but the bottom line really to me is not about seeking out pain and what it can teach me. It's about embracing the pain is just part of the deal. It's just the sweat and the tough exercise, the being on a bike and 400 pounds in a t-shirt and blue jeans surrounded by kids in spandex. It's just what it is. It's where you find yourself. And in order to get to where you want to be, you're going to have to go through that. So I think the misconception is that we thirst for, we're looking for something that pain is an end, and it's not. It's just part of the whole process. And so smart pain, you know, uh, uh, general adaptation syndrome. It's we're gonna have some soreness, but on the other side of it, you're gonna be better for it. So that's one misconception. I think the biggest misconception I think that we fall into is finding people who are just so mired in habit, negative habit, and think that I can't change. I can't. Yes, you can. I'm proof. There's so many people out there that are proof. I didn't mean to be proof. If you're in good shape, don't let yourself go just to fight yourself, fight your way back. Don't bother. A body in motion is better off in motion. So just stay in motion. But if you're like I am or was, and needed to undergo change, don't let anything stop you. Never let somebody else's limits become your own. Never, never. So many people want to tell you you can't. Oh, that's crazy idea. No, you could never do that. Don't ever listen to those voices. They are not your people. So anyway, that's I guess my message.
No, that's great. Thank you. You're dropping wisdom here, left and right here. So I hope you guys are taking this in, especially if you are, struggling and trying to get more active, and it's been hard kind of getting going. So just kind of recapping here, Scott really shared kind of how he overcame alcoholism, drug addiction, obesity, cancer, total hip replacement, and now he found his purpose. As you can tell, he's very passionate about this, and he is helping others as a running coach himself now, as well as a personal trainer. So kudos to you. Honestly, I'm so big on lifelong learning, and the fact that you are continuing, like you mentioned before. How old are you?
I'm 1 month shy of 69.
Wow, that's amazing. And you recently became
Amazing
a
to me
personal
too.
trainer.
I
No,
never,
that's
I never thought I'd see 38. So here we are.
that's fantastic though, because you're continuing to learn and you're continuing to grow. And I'm sure there are many runners who kind of learned something today and maybe would like to learn more or connect with you. How best for them to kind of reach out to you?
Um, my email address, I'm big on email, icemanbn at comcast.net. New Freedom Fitness is the name of my Facebook page. It's basically I just started a couple of months ago when I got out of uh, got my certification. It's basically right now just a digest of really good things, including links to your podcast. And
Thank you.
uh, you know, things like nutrition. I'm plant based, by the way. I got into plant based to try and reduce joint inflammation, and um, that was in 2015 when I got my hip, and I got off of arthritis meds in like three weeks. I haven't taken another. I don't have any joint pain at all, and so I've never looked back. I'm vegetarian, and so, um, but so there's articles about that and articles about triathlon and running and that kind of thing. It's just a nice place. But email me, and we'll see where we go from there. Uh, but just just if you have goals, go for
Just go for it. And I know, just kind of catching up. Sorry, guys. Scott had me in a trance here, give me all this positive, motivating talk. I didn't catch up with the comments here, but um, so Rachel says that is a very yoga concept. She loves it. And you are not your thoughts. So Rachel agrees. She is our resident yogi here within our Healthy Runner community. So Katie, thanks for jumping on. Shauna, thanks for jumping on. Dawn, thanks for jumping on. And Jean says, thoughts are just thoughts and you can rise above them.
it.
Exactly, Gene. Exactly. And I think Scott did a great job of that today. So for those of you listening or watching the video here in our Healthy Runner Facebook group, hit that like, hit that love button, show us some love for all he has kind of endured. And, thank him for sharing his story. And I think, you could tell he's very genuine in his approach and in his, for coming on here. So he didn't ask to come on here. I actually reached out to him to have him come on if he didn't mind sharing his story, because I know many of you are struggling. And I think it's good to know that we're not alone, right? And it's good to see that there is a better way, and there's a way to kind of climb out of whatever struggle that you are in right now. And I think hopefully some of Scott's tips and, hearing his story and hearing what he had to overcome can be helpful for you. So those that are listening on the podcast, thank you very much. And if this is an episode that you think others would benefit from, please share that out with them, so they can get the help that they need. And thank you again, Scott, for taking the time to share. And
Thank you.
thank you. Yeah, thanks for all of you who listened on Facebook, on the YouTube channel, or on our Spark You Training YouTube channel. Remember, every Monday night, 8 p.m., we go live within the Healthy Runner Facebook group. So keep us in mind in your schedule. We love when you jump on. We love when you ask questions. So thanks again, guys. Remember, stay active, stay healthy, and just keep running. Until next time.